This very special Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use promo code RTRS when you sign up. And brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky to get yours with the Process Pup Patch. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the Process. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. 2 guests on the Ricky today. 2 guests in one show. I don't know if we've ever done that before. Well, I guess we did it in the last podcast, but aside from that one. Sixers are in Orlando and practicing. Joel Embiid seems like he is back to his normal self. Sixers Adam is not in the bubble. We will reflect on 7 years of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast, which we celebrated yesterday. I celebrated. I don't know what that means, really. Our Carl Landry Record Club selection of the week, and then our guests. We will bring on the newest member of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez organization. Do we want to say, I guess if you're listening to it at this point, you can see who it is in the description, right? I feel like I'm going to make it a surprise, but then when he comes on, they'll already know. Mm-hmm. So should I say it here or not say it here? Whatever. I won't say it. You know who it is. And then a man with a story you will not believe. A Philadelphian named Hassan Bennett, who spent 13 years wrongly in jail after wrongly being convicted of murder, and then able to get himself out of jail by acting as his own attorney in 2 separate jury trials. Is the fucking craziest thing I've ever heard. So Hassan will be on with us later as well. Sign up for the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe by going to rightstoRickySanchez.com/newsletter. Make sure you play the DraftKings Sportsbook Sixers Orlando hostage pool, where it's all over-unders. It's free to play. You can win $500. Just go to rightstoRickySanchez.com, and the black bar up top has the link for you to sign up. That's it. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who was wearing a hazmat suit outside long before Joel Embiid ever thought to do so. That is Mike Levin.
It's just healthier and it's stylish.
It is stylish. Where do you get... So it was not a hazmat suit. What was it? Was it... people kept telling me what it actually was. Tyrex or Pyrex, whatever it was. Mm. Where do you get one? I mean, you got a plan to get one that big, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's very smart that you asked me because I... have a lot of experience getting hazmat suits, knowing where things come from. You just when you're that important or wealthy, I think you just like ask someone and then just they figure it out.
Yep, someone else does it for you. Yep.
Alyssa and I have both been like assistants to more important people, and sometimes they're just like, "Hey, can you do this?" And you're like, "Well, I'm 22. Like, how do I figure this thing out? You're a grown person."
Can you imagine having to figure those things out without the internet? Like 25
insane.
years ago?
Impossible, insane. I don't know. I think it might have been on the one hand like easier because then they wouldn't expect you to know everything.
Right. They wouldn't ask you those things.
Yeah, but also yes, you have to just call around and someone who knows a guy.
Yep. Great pictures. I appreciate Embiid for doing that. And somehow there's a guy with a baby. Just right there with him. I don't know how I got there with the baby, but
taking zero precautions to make sure he gets a picture with Embiid and his kid.
The Apple Podcast 5-star rating of the week. I meant to read this one last week because there was something I wanted to bring up that's in the rating. We are at 2,698 on our way to 3,000. Go to the Apple Podcast app, leave us a review and a 5-star rating, please. Worlds collide is the subject line. I am a regular listener and mostly enjoy the pod. I loved when I was reading the latest Runner's World magazine, issue 4, 2020, and in the My Running Life page under what I'm listening to, the writer listed that they run with the rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast and another one. So cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Running and the Ricky, it's a great combo. As a longtime runner, getting our podcast in Runner's World, along with Birds with Friends, was an incredible honor to be in that magazine. The best marathon plan I ever got was from that magazine, so thanks. The writer actually hit me on Twitter and let me know it was him, and I can't find the tweet right now, but that was really cool. And I'm really glad this guy mostly enjoys the pod. Yeah.
Mostly is probably the right level.
It's enough. It's enough.
I can't listen to podcasts while I run. It's just, it makes me want to slow down or go to sleep.
So I go through stages where when I run, sometimes I'll need music, and then other times I'll be sick of music and I'll just want to listen to it. The problem, though, that I found when I listen to podcasts or books on tape or whatever, or Audible or whatever, is that I stop paying attention and I'll go like 4 or 5 minutes and I won't know what was said, which I think for our podcast being an hour and 20 minutes often, that's actually probably fine.
No, rewind it. Start from the beginning.
So Sixers are in Orlando. Brett Brown spoke this morning, reiterated that he thought that Joel Embiid stuck out in terms of being in great shape. He said that he's going to start out with a 10-man rotation, and I'm glad that we're at the point in the season just before the playoffs we're figuring out who should be in the rotation. Just you got to play 10 guys.
That's what you want.
So he said that he doubled down on the Embiid. I couldn't tell by looking at did you see the pictures? I couldn't tell from Embiid by looking at it. His shirt was really big, so I couldn't tell what kind of shape he looked like he was in.
I will say he didn't look like he was in terrible shape, noticeably bad. So I'll take it.
Yeah, sure. Embiid, along with many of the players making jokes about the food. Embiid, by the way, the picture of Embiid at 16 years old is one of the more amazing transformations you'll ever see in the history of human beings.
Yeah, still insane.
It is crazy to look at that, but joke that would be him after it. Like, I think everybody was doing it in good fun, hopefully, the food jokes. It was a funny Instagram post. Tobias Harris, depending on the picture, looks a little like he might have put on a couple of pounds. But
I think the hair sort of makes it seem that way.
I enjoy the new Tobias look. I like the grown out look with the facial hair and the actual hair. I think he wears it well.
I support Tobias in every. He is the one single-handedly bringing this team together. Mm-hmm. I mean, walking in the footsteps of legends before him, Dario, TJ.
Yeah.
Cove was more just Justin Anderson. Mm-hmm. Gerald Henderson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All the legends.
I think everybody liked Cove, but Cove wasn't that guy.
He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. Vocal at that point in his career, at least.
What else? Ryan Brokoff didn't travel for personal reasons. Sixers Adam was speculating about what that was, but I don't really have any idea, so I don't want to guess that. Brett Brown already said he wasn't going to play, so I guess.
But the speculation was because an athletic trainer at Valpo, where he went to college, died suddenly, and so maybe that was the situation. But speculating. I didn't want to say speculating that he has the virus or something like that.
No. Oh, right. Yeah, that wasn't the speculation. Adam, I'm sorry. You're right. What else? Ben Simmons caught a fish.
Looks good.
Missed throwing the fish back into the giant lake that he was.
That's
throwing
fine.
Into the ocean.
Save it. Save all your makes.
One thing that I noticed is it is already telling to me. Now, Sixers reporters usually can't watch most of practice anyway. They only watch the very, very end of it. But it's already noticeable to me that nobody's there, that nobody's covering anything. That their only real access is Zoom after the practices, which is, I think, really benefits us. in that the only thing they had going for them was that they could be there, and now they don't even have that. So, congratulations on being invited to the Zoom, guys. But we're everything's even now. If you don't have a food list, you're fucking nobody. So, but I don't know. I thought that was noticeable. That I don't know if it's hit you at all, but the fact that like nobody saw anything aside from what we were told, I think it's interesting.
Didn't notice.
Didn't notice?
Not even for a little bit. I did. Alyssa listens to like a Disneyland podcast, maybe multiple. So hearing them talk about it, be like, "Hey, do you know this thing? There's this blue wall that's up in the Grand Floridian that's like just goes fully across the hotel. That usually the benefit of staying in the Grand Floridian is that you can look out at the park. I guess it's Disney World.
Yeah.
Look out at the park, and see, Cinderella's castle and all the fun stuff that you can see from this nice hotel. But now there's a blue wall there where it's blocking regular folks who are inexplicably going to Disney World during a pandemic, and paying seemingly a lot of money to do it. And they don't even get the view that apparently is one of the big perks of the hotel, because players who are not paying, in fact getting paid, in fact being held hostage, are on the other side, so they get the view. I would imagine those people that are willing to travel in a pandemic like that are pissed.
Is Alyssa a Disney person?
She is.
Oh boy, that's an entire other podcast. Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
it's a self-aware thing. Like she'll like dip her toe in, but I think she just she grew up here and
it's a thing.
Went to the park a lot, and so yeah, I mean it's a whole world. I am not.
Yeah.
She can get me going with some of the magic of it. Her getting excited about it is like, oh, that's cool. Like I like the history of the park, and like knowing secret things is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like into it, and then like kind of disrespecting herself that she's into it. In the same way that same with my Sixers fandom. Like I don't go around telling everyone, hey, I love the Sixers.
Yeah,
talk to me about the Sixers, please. Like that's it's a private thing. You keep it to yourself.
That reminded me when I was on a podcast with Brian Scalabrine and Ryan McDonough, and like every time I'm on a podcast that is not local, it's always funny to me how shocked they are about how negative I am about the team. Like it takes them 5 minutes or like 2 or 3 questions into it going like, well, this isn't going really the way I thought it was going to go at all. But no, I hate them. And the final thing about the bubble, and I don't want to reveal too much of this until it actually happens, but I believe there is a Ricky shirt in the bubble. And I believe we will see the Ricky shirt in an area that we will approve. That's what I'll say. It is not Brian Pollock, who does stats for the Sixers. It's not that. It's not even
Mike Scott.
No, and we don't know if he has the jersey. I will say this: it is not a Sixers person. It is not a person of the Sixers organization. So there's a Ricky shirt either in the bubble or coming to the bubble, and I believe we will see evidence of it. It's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you watch Matisse's video from the bubble?
I did. I thought it was a little long, but aside from that, I thought it was good.
Yeah, he's a talented guy. He's gonna freaking take my job. The him in the chair trying to like figure out how to sit in it. I thought that was really nicely done.
Not having the fork.
Not having the fork was great.
Yeah.
He's just so goddamn charming and attractive. I love the guy, man. I wish he could shoot.
Yeah, that would be nice. Or dribble, one of the two.
I know I've like sort of like graduated to shake.
We've all.
But
graduated.
I've been into Matisse for a long time in many ways. And if he can get to Danny Green wasn't like an excellent shooter when he came. I want to get give me on the road to Danny Green, and I will be a very happy boy.
Mike, yesterday, July 10th, was the 7th anniversary of our very first Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast.
Oh, jeez.
We had
you stole all of my 20s.
We had we had 1 or 2 podcasts before that, but the very first Ricky was July 10th, 2013. The title of the podcast was Sixers Get Young and Handsome. The description was Spike Eskin and Mike Levin discussed the week in NBA free agency, the Sixers hiring of Scott O'Neal,
Wow.
and the trade for Royce White, and
Mm-hmm.
of course Andrew Bynum. The second episode, which came out a week later, was titled "Laying Pipe for Bino."
Yeah.
Spike and Mike discussed the available free agent guard options for the Sixers, coaching candidates, and the rest of the league, including the Nets, which was a Russian Nets joke.
Great.
So we asked on Twitter what people's number one memory was, and there are a few that were mentioned the most. One is the fake All-Star Paul Millsap story, which is available on the old pod and has been replayed a couple of times. Another was Painkiller Mike, drugged up Mike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. TJ double fisting beers at Live Ricky 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then you going to the doctor seemingly every year on the trade deadline.
Yeah. I never learned. I was like, well, the deadline's at 12, so then I can schedule something at like 2, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I did that like 4 years in a row.
Yep.
And it was never the right move.
Do you have a particular one that sticks out? My guess would be no, but I'm curious whether you do.
Oh, I mean, like the live shows are always cool to me. I think my brain has erased every one of these we do because I'm just sitting at my desk and just hearing you in my ears
talking to me.
So that all goes away. But the live shows that makes an imprint, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think the moment that gave me the most chills was like when Covington came out to applause at the lottery party after they lost to Boston. That was cool. That was always the best for me.
The live shows, especially for you, because you're not here too. So there's been a few lottery parties you haven't been able to go to, and those sorts of things. So I think you're being able to see everyone in person is always like more stunning to you than it is to me.
Right. I will say my favorite moment should be when I beat Chris Kumaje in a 3-point contest, but I was robbed of that.
You were. For some reason, the podcast I remember most, and I've described it a lot of times, is the one after the Okafor draft, because I had eaten an entire crock pot full of buffalo chicken dip that my wife made for me. And no one came over, even though Ike said he would, and Andrew Porter said, like a lot of people said they would, nobody did. And I ate the entire thing. And I just remember being so tired and angry and sweaty from the buffalo chicken dip, and really just wanting the podcast to end. And you wouldn't start the pod until the fucking second round ended.
That's right.
So we had to start it.
I was very upset. I was waiting for more things to happen, and they just were not. And then they took Tokido, and that was enough for me. And then I had my first and only migraine the next day and threw up on myself.
Before we get to our the newest member of the Ricky, why don't we talk about one of the oldest members of the Ricky, or not just? Well, I guess both in terms of actual age and how long he's been with us. That is LL Pavorsky and LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Mike, I don't know how it fucking happens, but we're up to 185 engagement rings sold to Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners from LL Pavorsky.
185?
185. Yeah, we're up to 185. Like even since the beginning of the pandemic, I think he sold like 10 or something like that. And then recently in the last couple of weeks, he's had a bunch like just all kind of crop up. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. I can't even, it doesn't compute. The number doesn't compute to me anymore. I understand that the age of the listener sort of lines up with an engagement ring sort of person, but it's wild to me. LL is in store if you are comfortable doing it. He is by appointment only. The store, man, I'm telling you, if there was a store set up for this sort of thing, like the social distancing, safety sort of thing, it's always been LL store. It's never like, there's only 2 people in there as far as employees, really at any one time, but the most 3. You're not going to be like hounded over like you would at a regular jewelry store. It's just LL in a really beautiful place. There's plenty of, you can stand 6 feet away from him very easily. Everybody's all masked up, cleaned up. That's why he's doing the appointment thing. And even if you're not comfortable with that, he can do everything online if you'd like to do that. Give him a call, 215-627-2252. Email him, lee@llpavorsky.com. The store there at 707 Walnut, been there more than 30 years. 185 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners. I feel like LL with his Ricky clientele could go another 30 years easy now, right?
You better.
And you better, yeah, because we've got 30 years more podcasts to do.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell you.
Oh no.
We signed a new deal with DraftKings. Engagement rings or whatever you need. It's not just engagement rings, but he is your engagement ring guy. Donations decoded by kids at the Providence Animal Center for every Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
LL's daughter is babysitting my niece and nephew. So my family's health and well-being is now inextricably linked to LL's.
I love it. That's good. Whose shouldn't be? I mean, that's how we should all live. So we welcome the newest member of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez staff, formerly of The Athletic, but now he's come to where the real basketball people live. That is Mike O'Connor. Welcome, friend.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for welcoming me into the Ricky family. I'm excited to finally be a part of Mike's coaching tree officially.
That's right.
So yeah, good to be here.
It is the kind of thing that we are hoping, because you deserve a full-time job in this, that we only have you for a little bit. But it's exciting that we can finally see you spread your wings a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Spike and I were talking about how much of a tyrant Derek Bodner is, and how he suppresses the creativity and blossoming of people. And so I want to know what you're looking forward to spreading your wings about here on the Ricky.
I hope this is like the James Harden trade to the Rockets, and you're my like Mike D'Antoni or whoever that's gonna open me up, Mike. No, man. Yeah, I mean, look, like I'm at The Athletic. I'm a capital J journalist, and hopefully here there's maybe more room for whatever kind of outside the box stuff that we want to do. I mean, whether it's top 20 foods lists or what have you. I mean, I'm open to whatever. I'm sure this will be fun, and we'll see whatever comes of it.
I suggested to you that the column should be called The Better O'Connor or The Real O'Connor, and you seem to have no objections. Do you have a preference to one of the two?
Well, first off, let me say, if Kevin O'Connor is listening, I wouldn't have agreed to this if Kevin didn't strike me as the type of guy who could take a joke.
Yes, he absolutely can. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just thought it was a hilarious name. Obviously, everybody on Sixers Twitter likes to poke fun at Kevin. So I said, why not? I think that's pretty funny.
So I think for people who don't know you, and I believe the only time I've met you in person, were you at that athletic thing at that, what's the bar in Philly when you guys started?
Elbow Lane.
Yeah, a Harp and Crown, is that where it was?
Harp and Crown is it's like the upstairs, and the downstairs is Elbow Lane.
But I would imagine a lot of our listeners don't like have a baseline for who you are. So I wanted to go through some questions so everyone can set their expectations as to who Mike O'Connor is. You ready?
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
So I would hope this question would be obvious, but hinky guy or not hinky guy?
Hinky guy, for sure. Hinky guy. Yeah, from the very beginning.
Where were you when it started? Because you came up, like, you weren't writing for The Athletic when Hinky was still here. You were already...
No, yeah. When Hinky was hired, I was a senior in high school.
Oh, wow.
I just graduated high school.
Okay.
So, but I had been yeah, exactly. Adam's got a huge head start on me, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I had been a Sixers fan like all my life, and I had been basically in the place that you guys have talked about a trillion times, of just being so frustrated that the team had been so irrelevant and so aimless. And Hinkie came along, and like it took about probably like 30 minutes to understand the Drew Holiday trade and to like see what was actually happening. But once it did, it was like a revelation. Like I was like, I can't believe somebody's actually here that's going to put a plan in place that's going to tear this thing down to the studs. because that just hadn't happened. And it was such a breath of fresh air in every way. And, people who are, I mean, obviously there are a lot of people who are so over the top in their criticism of Hinkie, like, were just incredibly annoying and disingenuous. But people who have their legitimate criticisms that people like us were just sort of like infatuated with everything he did. I think I got to that point pretty quickly, just like everybody else. Like every move was like, yes, like we signed like Elliot Williams. He's gonna figure it out here. Like, it was in like that sort of mode. And then obviously slowly came out of that and became, once I decided to start writing and covering a team full time, you put the fan stuff aside. But yeah, that was me from the beginning.
You can be an Elliot Williams fan here with us.
Still,
You don't have to put that aside anymore.
Yeah.
You can be your true self.
This one I know more complicated for you, at least recently. Brett Brown guy or not Brett Brown guy?
In middle of the road, I've been really critical of him this year. I don't think he's done a good job this year. I think what's happened with Brett has been he's put a certain system in place that works really well. And I've said this before, but when you talk to people around the league about Brett Brown, one thing that pops up a lot is system works great when there's not a lot of talent, but doesn't quite adapt to star talent well and doesn't quite, fit in guys that need the ball a lot well. And I think you saw that first with Jimmy Butler. So I think what sort of happened with him in the fan base was before, like 2 years ago and even last season, a lot of stuff that was going on was really not his fault. And everybody was just like piling on him. And I think because everybody had grown such an appreciation for him and dug in last year, everybody was so afraid to criticize him this year and admit that they were wrong in some way. I think that's sort of what's happened. Like you still have the same two sides of like everybody saying either Brett Brown is the thing that's wrong with the Sixers or it's not his fault at all. And I just think it's in the middle. I think he's done a bad job this year, like period, point blank. But I think he's a great guy. I don't think he deserves as much criticism as like the crazy people will say. But I definitely am giving him a thumbs down this year.
We talked to Kevin Arnovitz about this a little bit and tried to get what was like. What do you think the front office was expecting with the team this year that Brett Brown is not delivering on?
Well, I think when you stop and think about what this team was supposed to be and what we all thought about last summer, nobody ever stopped to consider the fact that we were working on a lot of assumptions. Like everybody when we would talk about this team would say, wow, like if Simmons can develop a jump shot and if Tobias Harris can take a step forward and Josh Richardson can take a step forward and Al Horford can be just a little bit more perimeter based. And nobody stopped to say, like, that's a lot of assumptions. Like, that's a lot of stuff that has to go right for this team. And because none of those things have happened, it just has not panned out at all. And probably the biggest thing, like, I think, like, what you're hitting on is, like, they expected to be, like, a historically great defense. Like, historically great. And they're, what, like, fifth in the league or something like that?
Sixth. They were sixth.
Yeah.
And then since the All-Star break, I think they were, like, they have some weird split in that they were, because I heard Zach Lowe say this, they were like second in offense, but like 22nd in defense since the All-Star break, which was strange as well. Small sample size, but strange.
Yeah, probably a lot of it because Embiid and Simmons missed time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and
man.
Shake was electric. So
what's that?
And Shake was electric, so that
Shake
sort of halts your offense up.
So then what and I don't entirely disagree with you. Like I've fluctuated recently. I even suggested recently that they should move on to Udoka before the season restarts, so we don't
kind of
lose
like
them.
a panic with Udoka.
Yeah,
it was all of a sudden you're like, we need to do it right now, today.
So all right, you're given because I'm sort of conflicted because I agree with what you're saying, but then I look at the reality of this weird situation and I wonder what realistically he could have done differently. Like even the Butler thing. I agree with you on the Butler thing, but there's that whole Butler-Simmons dynamic where if you're giving Butler the ball, you're taking away from Simmons and you want Simmons to sign the extension and there's all that fucking stuff going on in your head. So what do you think realistically Brett could have done this year that would have been better, I guess?
I'll give you this year and this past year because it's not a ton of things, but I think there's some for both. Like this year, I think start with what he's done with Horford on defense, which is like put him in these deep drop coverages that that really only like Joel Embiid and Rudy Gobert should be playing. Because when you're playing coverage like that, like all the way back against the rim in the pick and roll, like you just need to be a giant, and you need like to be able to disrupt like any kind of lob that's coming or anybody that can finish over with a huge head start. Horford's just not that. And what really bugged me about that was Brett said he was going to change that. And it got to that point maybe like 35 games in, and he had that quote that was like, we're taking a blowtorch to our defensive plans. We're changing everything. And nothing changed. He didn't change anything. And I just came away thinking like, I think that's an example of him just being stubborn and not wanting to change that type of thing. And the Sixers' whole defensive plan is obviously like revolve around Embiid. And it's actually really different from the way like some of the best defense in the league run their defense. Like the Bucks are the opposite. Like they'll give, they're trying to take away everything at the rim, and they'll give 3-pointers like no man's business. The Sixers defend the 3-point line really hard, which is strange. And I kind of disagree with that. But yeah, and as far as like the Jimmy thing goes last year, I think that there had to be more of a balance there. There were too many times where it gets to nut cutting time in the fourth quarter and Jimmy just not getting the ball. He's just not getting the ball. And it's like dribble handoffs for JJ and like 1-2 pick and rolls for Ben and JJ. And it's like, you understand that Jimmy Butler's standing in the corner, right? Like you see him. That's Jimmy Butler. We have to do something about that. And what I, sort of congratulate or praise him for in the playoffs was adjusting, getting Jimmy the ball more and playing more out of pick and roll. And what I couldn't square was like, that's obviously the way you have to play. Why wasn't the team playing that way throughout the regular season? Why did you only switch to this when you realized like you had to do it and it would work? I just couldn't kind of square those two things.
Do you believe the team can be successful with Ben being the primary ball handler in the half court?
I do. Yeah, I think there has to be a Shake Milton guy. If it's not Shake Milton, it has to be the idea of Shake Milton.
Here on the Ricky, Shake Milton and the idea of Shake Milton are the exact same thing. So you don't have to
I've been
separate.
dreaming about the idea of Shake Milton for a long time.
You don't have to worry about that.
Mike, did you see the pictures from practice yesterday?
Yeah.
I thought Shake looked like he put on a few pounds of muscle. I don't know about you.
He does.
There we go.
But he does though. He looked kind of jacked. Shake Milton was the one when I saw the picture, and I was like, oh no, he looks like he definitely like worked out during the offseason.
Yeah. Business.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, man, I mean, win at the highest level, like win a championship. I don't know. They would have. I feel like it would have to have happened with like last year's team, where they have like a Jimmy Butler or just like on like a stacked team. But as far as winning like 55 games, like yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that they won 52 and 17-18 with that team as Simmons as a rookie and the lead ball handler, like that, I think is the template for what they should look for. It's just like Simmons, Embiid, and like guys who are going to shoot very quickly with little space. That was
if only they had those guys, Mike. If only they had those guys on the team at any point.
If only they weren't forced at gunpoint to get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
What about Embiid in the half court as an offensive weapon? Because I struggle to see, what we were excited about him, obviously in college, but also his rookie season was he was so quick in how he's making his decisions and going to the rim and rising up from wherever. And obviously the jump shot is, fluctuates, and hopefully for the rest of his career he has a more stable, Horford-esque, just like even, Serge Ibaka, whatever kind of jump shot that's just like consistent 35%, whatever it is. When he's open, he's hitting it. But as far as like getting him the ball in the deep post and being doubled and getting to the line, like I struggle to see this version of Embiid that's put on more pounds and like maybe isn't in the best shape. Like I struggle to see how effective he is on the offensive end aside from just drawing fouls.
I think that's very fair. but the foul drawing is like it's not just that he draws fouls; that he's like second in league in drawing fouls behind Harden. You know, like he's unbelievable at it. Like you can't guard him if you're not going to foul him. So yeah, like I think he's the best center in the league, absolutely. As far I've thought a lot about how he compares to like a different, like a wing, like primary scorer in the half court, and it's like clearly not as good because it's tougher to get him the ball. He can't do as much. The jump shot's an issue, but I still think he's like an efficient, like star level scorer, and he's somebody that, you know, it concerns me. The drop off in conditioning and athleticism really concerns me. Like, if you go back and even look at him at Kansas, it's like it's a different player. But I don't know. I go back and forth on Embiid, but I still think like if Embiid were an average defensive player, I still think he's an all-star. And I still think he's a player that you would want in your team. He's not just like Al Jefferson. He's not just somebody that's like a black hole in the post. It's like it's a coin flip any given night as to whether or not it's like worth it to give him the ball. I think he's, if I had to rate him, top 20 offensive player in the league, I would say.
You know, well, and by the way, he's the only guy on the team that draws fouls at a reasonable rate anyway. So we don't really have a choice there. But you almost wonder if instead of him getting stronger, you know, some players maybe benefit from having less weight and being less strong. And like I've watched those videos too, and just, you know, even from his rookie year with the Sixers, there's like a noticeable difference. I almost wonder if he just lost 25 pounds and gave up some of the strength, he could probably draw a foul. It's not like he's still bigger than everybody, especially in this NBA. I almost wonder if it would be better for his body and better for his game, and maybe he would give up some of that enormous advantage in strength, but he would gain a lot of other things. And I think that's maybe something he can control.
Absolutely. Like some of the stuff he did in that rookie year was almost like Giannis-like.
Yeah.
Like some of the drives from the perimeter and like stop and start stuff. And you just don't see that anymore. His game is just like bowling people over or getting them to like bite on his pump fake. He's really just leaned into the bully ball stuff. And I've wondered like what actually goes into that. Like, does he believe that that's what's best for his game? Is the additional weight born out of like sheer laziness, or does he think like I need to be heavier so I can bowl guys over and get to the foul line? I don't know, but I totally agree. Like I've said this before, he needs to go on the Draymond diet like before the playoffs and lose like 25 pounds or what have you. And we saw what it did for Draymond last year. He looked like a different player in the playoffs. So yeah. I'm with you.
Simmons and Embiid are just they're such interesting players. Like obviously they're all-stars and excellent players and with the potential to, I think, get good enough to lead a team to a championship. But their flaws are also so obvious and like right there, right out in the open. Whereas like I think about other guys, like who could tell you what like Brad Beal's flaws are? They're just like, he's really good. Like he's really good. Is he enough to be like the best player in the league? Probably not, but he's really good at pretty much everything. Whereas like Simmons and Embiid they're the best in the league at a couple things and like very clearly not even close at many other things. And so it seems like if they just fix a few of those things, bring those things up to average, it's a whole different situation. Well, obviously for Simmons, it's the shooting. For Embiid, it's probably like just making quicker decisions in the post, passing the ball, and then, you know, getting in shape.
Yeah, 100%. And like all this stuff, it makes it difficult to build a team around them because you have to have specific guys in specific positions. And like, there's no room. Like you can't fit an Al Horford in between those two guys. Everybody has to be like a lights out shooter. And it cuts at like how absurd the whole Simmons shooting thing is. And if he were to just do the most basic thing in basketball, like everything about this team and this franchise makes 1,000 times more sense. But who knows whether that'll ever happen, man. I have no idea. I've thought about it. I feel like I've thought about it more than like anybody on the planet, and I've gotten like nowhere on whether it's actually going to happen.
Well, because they're both excellent at what they do, and they're still, even with these massive flaws, they're still excellent, elite, all-star level players. But it's just getting that that last thing that would send them into the stratosphere.
I think the thing that
Absolutely.
makes the Simmons thing so confounding is I always say, hey, if you walk into an empty gym and there's a basketball sitting there right on the court, what is the first thing you would do? And like I was like, oh, shoot it! Like it's so crazy. So before we let you go, so the Sixers in the bubble. Bubble starts July 30th or 31st for them or whatever. What are your, obviously with the limited amount of information we know, your thoughts on them as like this team playing in empty gyms with 4 months off? Do you have a sort of a take on how well you think they'll do?
So I was really pessimistic about them by probably like late January. I didn't think they would win. I thought they would be out in the first round. I did not believe in them at all. I was completely out. The bubble concept, because it introduces more randomness, and because of some of the stuff like how, after like extended times off, like after the lockout, I think like the scoring went down and stuff, and everybody's just so discombobulated. I've given a little bit of room, a little bit of credence that maybe they could get to the second or even the conference finals. But at the end of the day, I don't believe in this team. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in the structure of it. I don't think anybody makes sense. I think they play a really joyless style. I don't think there's like any cohesion. Like I remember I had this one day that like really convinced me that I was like out on this team was I like sat down and I watched last year's Eastern Conference Finals, the Bucks against the Raptors, and I was just like, oh my God, these teams are so cohesive. Like the Raptors defense is just on a string. Everybody can drive and kick. Nobody has a single weakness. It's the polar opposite of the Sixers. Polar opposite. Nobody communicates. Like their defense should be so much better than it is. And that was what really drove me to be out on this team. So I'm going to still be pretty pessimistic, but I don't know. I might, if they play the Heat in the first round, I think they beat the Heat. But if Raptors or Celtics, I don't think they win.
Well, Mike O'Connor's first writing Wednesday this week. Wednesday for the Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast. You're far too legitimate. Like Mike said, I agree. I hope you get a full-time writing job somewhere else very quickly. But until then, we're excited to have you. As soon as this happened, I was like, oh, maybe Mike O'Connor will come in and write with us. So I'm looking for some takes from you.
Great. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And thank you for bringing me on. Really appreciate it.
Hey, hang out for we got to talk about Big Barker. So,
okay.
You a dog guy?
I love dogs. Unfortunately, my family has 2 cats, so.
That's okay. Cats can sleep on Big Barkers. That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a cat too.
My cat has a bed that he sleeps on about 22 hours a day. So.
Yeah,
maybe I'll get him.
My cat's 6 pounds, and she leaves like divots in her bed. That's how much she sleeps in her bed. Big Barker dog beds are the only real dog beds on the market. Been a sponsor of the Ricky for a long time. When I say real bed, the dog beds you get from the pet store, you can see if you were to just, and I mean this, take the person test. That's what I want you to do. Lay on the dog bed. You're going to feel like you're laying on a blanket. You lay on a Big Barker, you feel like you're laying on an actual mattress. And it's because it's engineered that way. It's engineered by experts to support your dog's joints. Big dogs, originally created only for giant dogs, but now it's for big dogs, small dogs, whatever. They have all different sizes. If you go to bigbarker.com/Ricky, that is bigbarker.com/Ricky, you get your Big Barker, but you also get 2 process pup patches, so they're an official process pup. And then if you send us an email, a picture, and a bio, they'll go up on rightsrickysanchez.com/processpups. We got Cody and Renly up there who are in London, Indiana, who is in Andover, Massachusetts, and Penny up there this week. We have a parrot up there too, Ava, a process parrot. So Tenny, wow. Look, the bed isn't cheap. I'll admit that, but it is good, and it's going to pay for itself. It's got a 10-year warranty. It doesn't flatten, or they replace it for free. A 1-year at-home trial. They will give you a full refund if you don't like it. They'll even pay for the shipping, and handmade right here in the Delaware Valley. Big Barker dog beds.
MOC, I'm going to need you to bark here for me.
Yeah, you got to bark.
Woo!
Well
my first bark. Mike has all this practice. I've never practiced.
That's good. No, we're working up to it.
Yeah.
All right.
We want to thank the newest Ricky member, Mike O'Connor. Ricky just growing by leaps and bounds every moment. Amazing. And all free. You don't have to pay 1 cent for it. Not 1 cent. Support our sponsors, but not 1 cent. Hey, before we get to Hassan Bennett, who will join us shortly, the Carl Landry Record Club selection of the week came to us from Aaron, who is a longtime Ricky listener and a regular email. And I said it wrong. I read it wrong when I saw it in the email. I read it as Tove Strike. It is Stierk. It is Tove Stierk. And the album is Sway. It came out in 2018. She is from Sweden. I'm a big, what's the word I'm looking for? Sweden is a...
Sweethead.
No. What all those countries, Finland and Sweden are
Northern
Scandinavian. Big pop, I love that sort of pop music that comes from there. So it was interesting. I listened to the record and I was like, wow, this is so good. Why wasn't it more popular? And I mentioned to Jason from Billboard that I loved it. And he said the record came out right after Tove Lo came out, and who had a hit. And like the odds of there being, like, he believes that the weirdness of there being two Toves at the same time hurt her, which I think could be, if you've been in the music industry, that could certainly happen. She has been around since 2009. She won 3rd place in Swedish Idol, and
wow.
Sway, yeah, which is crazy. Sway is her 3rd album.
I didn't know there was a Swedish Idol, and calling it, for some reason, I didn't even think that it would be called like American Idol Sweden or something.
Yeah,
calling it
Swedish Idol.
Calling it Swedish Idol makes it seem like such a different thing.
It reminded me, I don't know if you've watched that I forget what the movie's called, that Will Ferrell movie on
No, I haven't watched it yet.
Netflix. The music in that
Eurovision, I think it's called.
Yeah, Eurovision, which is also a show, which is like American Idol, I guess. Obviously, Robin influence here. I mean, it sounds like what it is. It sounds like Swedish pop music. I fucking love it. I mean, this is right down my alley. I imagine you think it's good. Like, you think everything is good. I loved it. Did you?
No, I liked it. I like Sylvan Esso a lot, and so it felt like a little bit like that, but maybe a little less weird, a little more just like straight poppy and fun.
Yeah.
I dug it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're doing over there in the Scandinavias. What's going? Why is music like this there?
So what's interesting is that, like, it is Swedish songwriters who are responsible for a lot of the most giant pop songs of the 90s and 2000s, were responsible for Backstreet Boys hits and NSYNC hits and all that kind of stuff. And Robin, who amazingly was popular when I was in college, and that is over 20 years ago, like Show Me Love and Do You Know What It Takes and all that kind of stuff, is popular in a completely different way now. Is popular, but also has like this cred that she never had before. Like, I've been a Robin fan for a long time. I don't know what they're doing over there. I think there's something about America where we have like shame in pop music on some level. Like, we've like, until maybe the last 5 or 6 years, there's been like less credibility to it. And I think other countries don't think that way. They're just like, oh, these are cool, fun songs, and that's what they do. So this is an amazing album. The title track I liked a lot. Say My Name and Change My Mind were the 3 songs that I liked the best. But I was a enormous fan of this record.
No, I liked it. And it's always weird when, I mean, this is just, I don't know music. It's always weird when people from a different place are singing like with American accents.
Yes. Yeah.
Very odd. But I dug it. I also, speaking of Sweden, I forgot that First Aid Kit is also one of my favorite bands, and they're also from Sweden. Maybe I'm just a big Swede head.
Well, there's Peter, Bjorn, and John. Like, I don't know if these are from Sweden, but they're from around there. I'm just trying to think of like ones that I like. Klangstoff is from there, and
do we have any Swedish listeners?
Beatrice Eli. We have to have a Swedish listener, right? Well, we had an email in the last one. The guy was from Sweden. He was from here though, but he was living in Sweden. It was awesome. Thumbs up. Absolutely thumbs up. Why don't we say for this one, I'm just looking at the list again. How about Polish Club?
Wow.
Do you know
just
it?
Making our way through Europe.
Yeah. Polish Club. The name of the album is All Right Already. and it was suggested by Matt. So that is Polish Clubs All Right Already is the new. And by the way, if speaking of music, if you've seen the Save Our Stages stuff online, like, one of the industries that this whole thing has hit, maybe it's hit the worst, maybe even worse than restaurants, is musicians and concert venues. And there's just no chance that most of the independent concert venues are going to stay alive without some sort of assistance. And that's what Save Our Stages is about. It's not only fundraising, but trying to get legislation to try to get further payment, payroll protection plan loans for these, and some help for these venues. Because this could be, for them, this could be, a year from now. And then, and not every venue is owned by Live Nation or AEG or something like that. So if you've seen Save Our Stages, you should at least read, not everybody has money to support everything, but you have a voice, and awareness, I think, is always super important. So you should check that out. As we wait for Hassan, I feel like we have all these mailbag questions. This one comes from Josh. Josh says, "Hi, Spike and Mike. Thanks for doing the pod over the last 4 months. It's nice that some things have stayed constant. I've been a Ricky listener since episode 1, but this is the first time I've ever written. A few episodes ago, you guys discussed the idea of sending Sixers Adam into the bubble. A throwaway comment was made about having a documentary crew follow him around. If you could have a documentary crew follow around one Sixer in the bubble at all times, who would you follow around and why?"
I feel like, I feel like with like star players, and you saw this with like Last Dance and stuff, and obviously it was very cool seeing Jordan from that time, and the fact that it was released, 22 years later. You get what it's like to be a star player, and they're getting like herded around all the time, and people just want a piece of you, and all of a sudden, it's Embiid can't really hide. He's a big guy. I would like to know what it's like to be just like, Alec Burks or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, him, because there's like some level of you're just a guy a little bit, like you have all these perks, but it's just like, okay, where am I going? Like a little bit as writers on a TV show, when we're like walking from, say we're on a lot, like one of the lots I was on was Warner Brothers, and we would walk from the production office to where the table reads were, and there's like assistants and whatever, like kind of knowing where to go, and writers are kind of just like aimlessly being like, where is it? What are we doing? And so there's a little level of that, where no matter what industry you're in, you're kind of like, if you're one of the whatever people that are important enough to have assistants, then it's like you're being just herded somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this? Am I going the wrong way? And like, oh, did somebody lose Alec? Where's Alec? Like, it feels they're a little bit like a kindergarten class sometimes.
Well, and when you're a star and used to being on camera all the time, there's a certain part of your personality that is performative. And I sort of get the sense that if we had a camera on Ben or Joel all the time, or even Tobias or Horford, they would be super aware. We would get the version of those guys that they would know we would want to see. I do sort of wonder, it was funny to see the responses from like J.R. Smith about the food and the setup in there, and then Joel, and then some of the other, like the lower level players are like, I don't know, it seems pretty nice to me. Like,
Rashawn said that.
Yeah. It's like, oh wow, they're gonna bring the food right to me every time, and I don't have to do anything about it.
Dude, they could have, if they just kept Rashawn.
Yeah.
Then they wouldn't have had to. Instead of Horford, they could have gotten like Bojan Bogdanovic for less money.
But I didn't believe in Rashawn either. Like he was so,
for sure.
He's
gotten a lot
defensively.
Better. Yeah, absolutely. But you got to be able to, someone's got to be able to see that he had that in him. And maybe that's an indictment on Brett, because Shake was right there and he's not playing because as like people fumble around, it's like, well, he's really good, and is he perfect or no? But like you got to see the potential there.
You also wonder if the Sixers letting him go lit a fire under his ass. Like, it's hard to know, the free will discussion it's hard to know what made him take a leap, because here all he did was chase blocks. Like he was out of position all the time. And truth be told, I have not the metrics support that he's better defensively, and his playing time to sports that he's better defensively. I haven't seen very much of it in Phoenix, so I don't know, but I'm interested to see it. Actually, it's one of the things in Bubble Land that I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I forgot that he's going to be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's going to be.
I wonder if like former Sixers are going to like hang out. Are they allowed to?
Yeah, they're all allowed to hang out, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. This one comes from John. Thanks for all you've done the past few months, keeping everyone sane during quarantine times. My questions are as follows. Basketball. Your discussion a while back about Udoka had me thinking, if the Sixers chose to elevate him to head coach, would it make sense, and would Brett consider moving to a front office job? They obviously trusted Brett with running the show a few years ago after Colangelo left. He's been strong in talent evaluation and player development. I also wonder if spending so much time in the spotlight answering for Hinkie and Colangelo has worn on him, and he might prefer a behind-the-scenes job. The answer to this quickly is no on both sides for me. He wouldn't want to do it.
Probably not.
Yeah,
I would say probably not, but, he's been coaching a long time. He's got the Australian team. I would doubt that he would move into a... he wouldn't go be you either move him to go be the GM, or he's like, golden parachute consultant the way Doug Collins and Rod Thorne and all those guys became, whatever. It doesn't seem like you go, hey, go be an assistant GM.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem
Dalton Brand, who just became GM.
right.
Yeah.
But Sixers have done weirder things.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want him to be the GM. I like, God bless him. Like, it is almost impossible to put into context the amount of wreckage that he's been through here. And I just think if they decide to let him go, that the best thing for him, for everybody, is new start. Is just like new start. Like, there's a lot of baggage. Just so much baggage. You can look at Mike's eyes right now. There's so much baggage in those eyes.
7 years.
Yep. And non-basketball question, Jigsaw for Spike. Would you rather, one, host a mini-series podcast, 10 to 12 episodes, with your father called Askin' Eskin, where you converse over your father's thoughts about current events, old-time sports debates, etc. Caveat, Hinkie has to be at least one entire episode. Or two, grant Tommy from down the shore his own weekly 1 hour-long show on WIP for a year, under the assumption that he's willing to do it. This is so easy. Tommy from down the shore would be on for 1 hour every week. Do you want me to do it? Weekly is like nothing. I'm willing to do 5 days a week for Tommy from down the shore on WIP. Absolutely. I don't care. That's fine with me.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Keep up the good work. Before Hassan gets here, I feel like the perfect sponsor to lead into him is, of course, By Nature Pet Foods. No, I'm just kidding. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Maybe if Hassan becomes like legally a lawyer, Kornblau can hire him to become like the newest member of Kornblau, and then he would be Hassan Bennett Kornblau.
Yeah, would have to add a hyphen to his name.
Yeah, Kornblau and Kornblau have been here for 40 years. Now, Kornblau is not old enough to be in charge of a law firm that's been here 40 years because his parents started it, his mom and his dad. His dad passed away. He now runs the law firm with his mom. They are the only personal injury law firm you will ever need, 100%. And by the way, if you have any other legal question, they're the only any other legal question you would ever need. He might not be able to litigate it for you, but he'll be able to send you in the right direction. Everything else, as far as personal injury, he's the guy. He's got a passion for it. He cares. He is he's like a real person that is dealing with you. He's not just dealing with you like you're a number. He's a real person, and he's going to take the time to make sure that you feel comfortable with the entire thing. Some of the biggest medical malpractice results in the Delaware Valley's history, and then slip and fall, injured at work, car accidents, all that stuff. If you think you might have a case, give them a call or shoot them an email. It doesn't cost you anything. 215-576-7200, ask for Adam, or email kornblau@kornblauandkornblau.com. Adam Kornblau, the official law firm of The Process. And we welcome the litigator himself, Hassan Bennett. What's going on, man?
What's up? How y'all feeling today?
We're all right. How are you?
I'm all right. It feels good to be on here.
Yeah. I love that. See, you're already a marketer because you already got the T-shirt on. You know you're going to be on the pod,
No
so you
doubt.
know you got the T-shirt on. So, I know you've told. So at the beginning of the podcast, and on Twitter and stuff like that, we gave like a brief thing of your story. And I know you told it a bunch of times, but it's such an amazing thing. I wanted to, before we get to what's going on now, I wanted to go through that. Are you cool just going through the entire story again?
Yeah, I could go over the story.
So, Hassan, go ahead. All right. Yeah, you tell it from your perspective.
So in 2006, I was arrested for the homicide of my friend, right? And when I was arrested, they took me to jail, sent me away. So when I went to jail, I just was trying to figure out the jail politics. I really wasn't worried about the case because I was like, I ain't do it. I'm not worried about this case because I didn't do it. So about 4 months after I had got locked up, it was one of the victims had wrote me. Now it's a homicide and another person that got shot. The person that got shot with the deceased had wrote me, and he told me, "Listen, I know you didn't do it. I'm not coming to court, but they trying to force me to say something that didn't happen." In this letter, somebody intercepted the letter and they kept it. So when I went to preliminary hearing, the guy that everybody was saying on the streets had did it, he was testifying against me in preliminary hearing. So he had made a statement saying I did it. But when he testified, he said the police told him to say I did it. He said the police forced him to make it. 3 officers had forced him to make it. So despite what he said, him saying I didn't do it, they held me over for trial. Now in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, when you get charged for a homicide of second degree or first degree, there is no bail. So I'm just in jail trying to figure out the jail mechanics. So I get my discovery. I find out that it's a statement where the victim that wrote me the letter, he's saying I did it in the statement. The guy that did it, he's saying I did it. And we had a jailhouse witness that was saying basically that I told him I did it. So about 3 months after that, I get my discovery, all the information regarding the victim goes down again and he says, well, Hassan didn't shoot the guy, but this guy Lamont, he shot the guy. Hassan was shooting from the other side. A couple months after that, the guy Lamont confessed to it, but he keeps me in it. He basically says, I forced him to do it. He took all the money. He shot the guy in the head and then gave me all the money. I go to my first trial. It's a mistrial. After that, they search my whole cell. The victim comes and he says the same thing. Listen, Haas ain't do it. The detectives made me say that. They tricked me. They told me I had to sign this to get out and go home, but they forced me to say it. The guy that did it didn't testify against me. The jailhouse witness testified against me, but it was a mistrial. So after that, I began to study the law. I began to study the rules of credibility. I began to study the courts and procedures. I began to figure out how to write motions. So I'm pushing. Now, in the midst of doing this, I've realized that the clerk of courts has an obligation to keep the record. So I would send my letters to my lawyer through the clerk of courts because in my mindset, if he didn't do it, lawyers have an obligation to stay updated with the clerk of court. So if he can't come back later and say, I didn't know because the letter is in the clerk of court's office. You should have known if you didn't know. So I'm writing everything I want him to do in letters sent to the clerk of courts. I go to my second trial. The guy that did it testifies against me. They give him a deal to 25 to 50. He testifies against me. So I get found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. After getting found guilty, I went through the depression state, but I kept studying law. I knew my direct appeal was going to be denied, but I was preparing for the stage after direct appeal. So I got every dollar I had. It was no more spending to go get cupcakes, and chips from the prison store. It was like, save that, and I hired a private investigator. That private investigator found 2 witnesses and a couple documents that was beneficial to me. So I filed the next stage. I filed my what is known as a PCRA petition. I filed that to the court. A lawyer was appointed in 2012, February 2012. He just sit on my case. He don't do nothing. I filed to get rid of him. We talked. I decided to keep him. He finally files a petition. It's inadequate. So in December 19, 2014, I decided to forego every attorney and represent myself. So now I'm fighting. When talking to the judge in this process, the lawyer is trying to throw me under the bus, the one doing his job. But I had every document showing. He was trying to say I didn't have these things, but every document I had was showing like, all right, he got it. So the judge ended up kicking him out the courtroom. So now my confidence is boost. So I start representing myself. I filed my petition. I found phone records that I didn't do it. They said I was getting high. I found drug screenings that proved that I don't get high. It's one thing to say it, but you look at me and be like, I don't get high. You be like, yeah, right. But I had to find the documentation to prove that I ain't get high. Phone records. About 2 more witnesses came and testified. The deceased girlfriend came and testified that I was wearing red and white, which is different from the description of the shooter who was wearing all black. I pointed out that they kept the guy down there. They took him directly from the hospital and kept him down homicide headquarters for over 10 hours before they wrote down what they wrote down, showing that it's possible that these detectives was beating on this guy as the victim said. So I went to a hearing. The case got overturned. So now I have to go to trial. Now, when I'm going to trial, I'm going under the DA, Larry Krasner. So the first time I go to trial, I'm proving that this guy has a history, this detective has a history of beating these kids up. So where the victim says he beat him up, it's likely. Where the guy that did it is saying, the guy that confessed is saying, no, he beat me up and forced me, it's highly likely. Everybody came and said that this guy, this Detective Pitts, did something. They said he stood outside the courtroom and supporters that was trying to get in, he pulled them in a room and would beat on them. Everybody has a story about Detective Pitts. Now, Larry Krasner wants to try me, but he doesn't want to put Detective Pitts on the stand. Cool. You don't have to put the detective on the stand, because all the other cops came and was like, nah, Detective Pitts didn't interview him. I interviewed him. Detective Pitts was nowhere in sight. Cool. Y'all say that. I called Detective Pitts. Come on, get on this stand. And he put himself in every place that the witness put him in, which contradict what the cops were saying. So they were trying to whitewash the case. I presented my phone records. I presented the female I was on the phone with. I presented an eyewitness who said the guy wore all black. It was a tall guy, which corroborated what the victim was said. I presented the evidence testimony that what I was wearing that day. And the trial ended in 11-1 in favor of not guilty. So that's a hung jury. So I got to sit in jail for about a good 6 more months. But during this time, I'm in the hole. So I'm thinking about little crafty ways to go at them. Like I can't go the same way because they're going to be prepared. So when I start my 4th trial in my opening argument, I say, this case isn't about what the prosecution says. It's about common sense. And I learned common sense as early as Sesame Street. It was a segment on Sesame Street that basically said, one of these things just doesn't belong here. One of these things aren't quite the same. So you can picture me in court singing this song. You can picture me in court singing this song. And then I pull up pictures here as an apple. Here's a peach. Here's an orange. Everybody know that. And then there's Oscar the Grouch. Everybody know that everything's a fruit but Oscar. But the prosecution wants you to believe that Oscar the Grouch belongs to it. Don't let them humiliate you. Don't let them trick you into going against your common sense. So I presented all my evidence. The jailhouse witness, I kept these little flashcards, and every time he lied and I proved he lied, I would flip the flashcard down. So he starts paying attention to the flashcard instead of his testimony. Like it's like Jeopardy or something. He's playing the game with the flashcards, watching, making excuses for each lie. The judge is laughing. The prosecutor is mad. And then I was found not guilty in 81 minutes of deliberation.
All right.
And I walked out of
many
prison.
Questions. I want to start at the beginning because you were like, you knew you didn't do it, so you didn't have anything to worry about. But there must have been. That's what you thought, right?
Yeah.
So there must have been a time where you were like, oh no,
yeah,
like something's going on here that wasn't the way that I thought it was going to go. What? Okay, is that what it was?
My first trial. You know, I didn't really know anything about the dynamics of a trial. I'm thinking it's like Matlock. Yo, he said I didn't do it. All right, that's cool. He said I did it, but he got 20 different inconsistencies. I'm going to go out. But the way the prosecution spoke so confidently and put pieces together, I'm like, oh, this ain't how it's supposed to be. It felt like I was going to be found guilty. The jury took like 3 days to deliberate. I'm like, this wasn't right. And that uncomfort, uncertainty, and that ignorance moment right there, that's when I decided, you know what, I got to figure out something. I got to start studying what they study. Try to figure out.
There were phone records that first attorney you had didn't introduce that you ended up introducing. Like, so go ahead.
Okay. So he had them and he didn't introduce them. Not only did he had one page. I can't answer that.
Okay.
He had one page of the phone records, right? The prosecution's office had the whole invoice. They had the entire invoice. And they just pushed it to the side. Not only did they have the entire invoice, this same Detective Pitts, that all the witnesses said beat them up, he received a copy of this phone bill. Mm-hmm. And he just threw it away.
Sure.
He lost it, as they say.
How did it feel when, you know, you're sitting in prison and you hear that people that you know, your friends, said that you did it? People that you know. And then how did it feel when they recanted their statement and said that it was forcibly coerced?
Well, the deceased was my friend, and the other guy that got shot was my friend.
Okay.
I didn't really know the other two guys at all. So, so I knew I didn't do it. And the rumors had already circulated. I got locked up 3 days after. So the rumors was already circulating about who did it. Right? So when I got my discovery and I seen it, it was like, this doesn't make sense. Why would he write me a letter saying I didn't do it? Make a statement saying I did do it. Write me a letter saying I didn't do it. Then go back down and make a statement saying I did it again. It didn't make sense. People don't do that. You're not going to take your time out to handwrite a letter only to turn back around and do something else. And he had got locked up for carrying a gun and 4 guns, and the people that was with him said he was going to retaliate against the person that shot him. And this was after I was already locked up. So when I got locked up, the police had already informed him that I was locked up. I didn't have bail. This is part of victim-prosecutor relations. So he already knew that I didn't do it. So why would he be going out there trying to retaliate? Who was he going to retaliate against? Not me. So his actions outside of court contradicted those statements. So I knew it was some funny stuff going on with those statements.
It happens a lot of time that people are accused and convicted of crimes they didn't do. But it doesn't happen all the time that somebody decides, fuck it, I'm going to be my own lawyer. So it has to be a combination of like confidence.
I'm an asshole. I'm a natural born asshole. Everybody says I'm like a Sour Patch Kid. So I do some asshole shit to you, then I do something nice. I got to balance it out. So with that being said, I spent all my time in prison arguing with the guards, paper pushing against the guards, majority of the time, right? After I got convicted. So they be like, Bennett, you're an asshole. Yep, I'm an asshole. So going in court and actually stepping up to him, it gave me like the power to be like, yo, I'm an asshole. and I'm gonna show you how much of an asshole I am. So, like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm throwing your laws right back in your face. You tried this.
And you must have gotten advice to not do that, right? I mean, you must have gotten advice to not represent yourself.
Everyone told me not to do it. Everyone told me inside and outside the prison, yo, you tripping, don't do it. My best friend would be like, yo, chill. Let the lawyer do it. One of my friends had hired Gary Silver. And he was like, yeah, I already gave Gary Silver the money. He going to represent your case. He got the money. I said, bro, did I ever tell you anything wrong in your life? No. He says, no. I said, if I tell you something going to happen, it's going to happen, right? He's like, yeah. I told him, go get that money back and spend it on your son. He was like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, go get that. He ain't taking this case. I got it.
Wow.
I had to wrestle with my cellie because he was trying to get a lawyer. And I was like, no, I'm getting rid of him. So everybody was telling me, but it didn't make logical sense. It didn't make sense when you looked at the time. It didn't make sense when I knew what the heck was going on. Why should I wait for a lawyer to get it? And then why should I wait for him or her to file what they need to be filed? It's a lot of times where you come to attorneys and they went to college for it. They've been doing this for X, Y, and Z for so many years. So when you tell them stuff, they'll look at you like,
right,
come on, man, I know what I'm doing. I don't got time. I didn't have time to do that. Time had already been rolling. By 2014, I had been locked up 8 years already. I can't keep playing these games with y'all, begging you to file what I know is right for me. Begging you to say in court what I know is the best way to do it. So a lot of the little tactics, the Sesame Street song, a lawyer wouldn't have sung it. The card tactic, a lawyer wouldn't have did that. They put my first prosecutor on the stand. A lawyer would have objected to her being on the stand. I was like, no, put her on the stand. Why are you here, lady? They wouldn't have. And I didn't like the fact that everyone was cordial with each other. So when it came to me, inside the courtroom, in front of the jury, I was sarcastic. I was an asshole. Outside the eyes of the jury, it was like, yo, I'm coming for y'all throat. Y'all got one on me. I'm coming for y'all throat.
In your third trial, you said there was a hung jury and there was one holdout. So it was a hung jury. So
one holdout.
I mean, that's the first time you've ever been a lawyer representing yourself. I read an article that it said it made you feel more at ease. How did it not just like break you, the fact that you came so close?
Because it was one person. So what I did is I would write everything about the juries down. So I saw that he was from Lansdowne, PA. And I said, dang, Lansdowne in the 80s was like, you don't you come around here. You trouble, you come around here. So I understood where I went wrong. So I began looking at the demographics of each area in Philadelphia as well as outside Philadelphia to try to catch a hidden someone that may have racial bias in my jury without asking them, because you could say anything. The best thing about humans is I never know what you think. I know if I ring a bell, the dog won't come and eat all day. But with humans, I can never predict your moves unless you speak. Now, if you deceive me, you deceive me. But when you look at, when they say where they from, I said, okay, you can't deceive me with that. I could actually tell. I may not could tell if you have any biases, but I can make a decision based on it.
I know if I were, I don't know if I would have the guts that you did to represent myself, but if I were, I would think about like lawyers that I had seen on TV or the movies, and like I'd try to channel one of them. Was there like a lawyer that you had seen that you were like, I'm gonna be like him or no?
No. So in my mind, I wanted to be like the people. Like I said, lawyers hold themselves like I'm the elite. But
Right.
the jury are people or your peers. So I wanted to be like the people. And my first time talking, you get quite nervous. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go in here and be me. This is my style of litigation. I'm not going to go in there and act like a lawyer. I'm going to go in there and act like Mr. Hip Hop. I'm going to go in there and act like I'm just chilling with the fellas and we just discussing sports or something. I'm going to go in there and argue with them. And if somebody says something that's corny or boring, I'm going to tell them, yo, that was some bullshit. That was some bullshit you just said. So the prosecution said we didn't know about the phone. We didn't know about the phone records. The phone records aren't his. We took them from out his cell. That's some bullshit, yo. How they not mine and you took them out my cell? They got my name on it. They got my address on it. How they not mine? I just point out the bullshit. When you come on the stand and you say something, I just point out the bullshit, just like kicking it with your homies. You got to know what you're talking about. So once I knew the law, it's no reason for me to act like a lawyer just because I know the law. No, I'm still y'all. I'm still one of y'all. I'm more relatable.
How did it feel when you were locked up because of this detective that forced, coerced confessions from these people, knowing that he has a ton of like internal investigations and lawsuits against him for that exact thing? What was that like being in jail, knowing that, and then him still being
It was hard.
a detective now?
It was hard, number one. Number two, I just understand where the city was. I understood where the police department was. I began to understand the politics of the city. So why is he still on the office? Not only why is he still on the office, why when people file civil suits because of his actions, why is there a office, a city solicitor's office that will represent him? Not only represent him, they'll represent the city, but they'll deny his actions knowing it's over 20. I began to understand the prosecutor's office. Like, all right, the prosecutors aren't for me. So when the no call list came out, it's a no call list. So if you got a bad cop, they won't put you on the stand. So I understood, like, all right, they hiding him, trying to hide him and whitewash the case, but still get a conviction on me. I began to understand it more, and I was angry. I fought out of anger. Though I laughed, though I smiled, though I had the jury laughing, X, Y, and Z, I was angry. I'm still angry. I still don't like certain people. I still have need towards certain people, but I don't let it hold me back. I use it to fuel where I'm going in the future.
You lost years, a decade of your life. Who do you carry that anger, and like who do you blame for that, or do you have to let that go and just live every day?
You still carry that anger, but because I lost over 12 years of my life, I'm going to do what I want to do, when I want to do, how I want to do it. If I feel like skipping from here to South Philly, singing, whistling Dixies, I'm going to do it. If I feel like coming, I had a dream that I would fly over the moon and past the sea. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, when I want to do, because now I got my freedom back. I got the golden ticket. It's ours. You value life more. You value life more. You value time more. So you go out and you try to grab joy in any way you can.
One last question about Officer Pitts and the trial is you called him as a witness. You called him. So
yeah, I called him on the stand.
I guess, how are you able? Here is this guy that you know is basically responsible for you being in jail, and you call him and you are face to face with him and you get to ask him questions and blah blah blah. How are you able to contain yourself in a way? And I know I would be so mad that I don't know if I would be able to do that. Like, tell me about like the lead up to that and how you felt while you were doing that.
So I prepped for it. I know I was gonna call him. I know he was going to say lies, but then I knew if he said it, so I had so many trials. I had 2 trials in the beginning. So I had my answers that I want him to say already down. He had already answered to these things. And by the time he got on the stand, all the other cops had contradicted his answer to these things. So my whole thing was, okay, you lie. I'm just going to go right back to the record and say, read this. You said that, didn't you? You don't remember saying it? So the clerk of court's lying on you. The clerk of courts was wrong that day. Okay, let's go to the second trial. And they'll say the same thing on the second trial. So seeing everything going in my favor, seeing everything happen as it was planned, I just was like, all right. Now he tried to throw a screwball in there. He tried telling, yeah, you the one that told me he got shot in the head. I'm like, okay, I did. Go to this. Yeah, I had to go back to the ballistics report to find out he got shot in the head. So everything he tried, I had something in the record that he had said before that contradicted him. Plus, and I used the fact that why you think these guys try to stay away from him? Why you think they like, no, he want an interview? The witnesses, every witness saying he was there, the cops saying they weren't there. But yet, in previous testimony, he's like, yeah, I was there. And in certain new testimony, he was like, I was there. It just showed that you guys were corrupt. It showed that the Philadelphia Homicide Division, as well as other police stations in the city, is corrupt. Now, when they say it's no bad cop, I'm not going for that, because if you know these things happen and you try to wash your hands with it or turn your back to it, you just as bad as the cop that's doing.
What have your seeing all this like in Black Lives Matter movement and after the George Floyd killing? How have you felt? How have you felt about this?
I was front row. I had mixed feelings. I was mad that it happened, but I took it home. It hit me. I was directly affected by police misconduct, abuse of powers. So when the protest happened, when that happened, I couldn't wait to get out there. And if I was upset that it happened, I'm upset that we have to do this. But I was proud of myself that, I'm out here standing for it. I'm out here standing actually for something. I'm out here making speeches during the rallies. I'm out here. I'm just in the mix. I'm not in a jail cell. And I'd be damned if I was going to be in my house.
So right now, so here you are. You've been out for a year, a little over a year. You did what a person who was officially a lawyer and educated as a lawyer could not do, right? You successfully, you were a lawyer. You argued your case, but you could not do that for other people. Have you thought about, or you thought about being in the process of, hey, I can do this. I can be a lawyer. Like.
So yes, I thought about it, but okay. So I was going to a school before I got locked up. Because of my arrest, I wasn't able to finish the school. My loan went into default, so I gotta pay back the loan before I'm able to go to any school. But what I have done is I filed for a nonprofit, the litigator. We defunding the police, and what we do is we give assistance to people, advice to people in predicaments, and that has been arrested. Not only do we give advice to people in predicaments, we have drafted out a curriculum. Right now, we're going on the workbook that basically teaches you all your rights, teaches you why these rights come about, teaches you where we came from, and we got shirts for sale.
I ordered one this morning. So our mutual friend Tim is doing your shirts, so they can get your shirts. So your Instagram is _litigator, and same with Twitter, right?
Yeah, DA_litigator.
Both spots. So I read in one of your interviews that there was a guy, hold on, I want to get his name, Brother Mook, who was in prison with you who sort of gave you advice.
And
Can you tell me about like what he did for you, and then you, I guess, sort of paying that forward in the same way?
so I had been studying the law before I got in the cell with Brother Mook. But when I got in the cell with him, I didn't want him in there at first. Like, yo, don't come in my cell. I don't want this old man in my cell. But then after we got to talking, I was like, no, I'll keep him in my cell. We all right. So Brother Mook, I would ask him questions and he would just be like, look in that book right there. And just tell me right out what he wouldn't just tell me the answer to anything. He would have me look for it. And in having me look, listen, everything is in the books. If it's in black and white, it's the truth. You got to find it in black and white. Once you find it in black and white, can't no one deny you without having a backlash from the higher courts. That's all this is about. Following the rules and regulations of the courtroom. Following the rules and regulations that's provided to you. So I would explain my interpretation of things to him, and he'd be like, yeah, stop asking me. You burning me out. So I asked him to read a petition for me. And he said, listen, if I'm going to read your petition, you got to read this book. So I read the beginning, a couple pages in the middle, and then I gave him my petition. He was like, you sure you read the book? I'm like, yeah. So he read the petition, and, well, he ain't read it. He skipped it to a certain page, the beginning of the argument. And then he ripped my petition. I'm like, yo, why you rip my petition, yo? You're like, why you lie to me? What do you mean? You ain't read the book? Yes, I did. Did you read the whole book? I'm like, no, I ain't read the whole book. He said, listen, if you read the whole book, you'll realize what it is that I'm trying to give you. So I read the whole book, and it was how to write arguments, the format of writing an argument, the crack format, the IRAC format, conclusion, then you state the rule, the basis around it, you make your analyst, and then you put the conclusion in. That's the crack format. The IRAC format is the issue, then you put your rule, then you put your analyst, and then your conclusion at the end. So, and reading this book, I was like, all right. Everything, it was proof that what he said was true. Everything in the court is in writing. And as long as I follow the rules and procedures that and arguing my case, then I won't have any problem. So I thank Mook. I still go up to see him. Well, not now because COVID came out, but I still went up to see Mook. I see his family sometimes, talk to him on the phone at least. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to do what he did to me. Like, I'm not going to just tell you nothing. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to give you the tools on where to find it. I'm not going to do, I may do your whole case. It depends who you are. It depends how much you need it. But most of the time, I just want to feed you the information.
I'm sure the day
so
you got
can
out
go out and be a litigator yourself.
An incredibly moving day for you and for your family and friends. What were the months after that like?
Yeah.
Oh no.
The months? I got in a car accident. So I was just trying to figure it out. I was trying to work and then work on my I just was trying to figure out life. Like sometimes I'll walk in the street without looking both ways because I ain't have no cars to look out for in jail. So I had to figure out life. I was trying to pave my way, get a job, start this nonprofit. I was trying to figure it out. So it was like a rush, but I also was trying to find joy in between it. So
was it
every day was like a whirlwind.
That when you finally got out of prison, you had to watch the 2019 Sixers?
I ain't gonna hold you. Mm-hmm. Every season of the Sixers,
yeah,
I watch, except for this season.
You know what,
man?
I did not watch this season. I just was out. Around. I watched the Eagles.
Yeah.
I watched a couple games of the Sixers. Well, I went to a couple games.
Yeah, this is did you get to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl? Like, did you watch that game? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, from a small cell. The TV was 32 inches. I'm about 100 feet away from a window like this big. So I'm like, yeah! I got a cup in my hand and I'm banging on the door like bang, 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 bang. Yeah. But it's cool because I went to a couple games since I've been out. I watched the stomp a mud hole in Washington.
Yeah.
and Dallas.
Well, if there are fans
So
of
that
the
was
games,
like,
we'll make sure
yes.
I'll get you to another couple of games as soon as they start letting fans in again. There's a TV show that one of my favorite TV shows ever is called Rectify, and it's about a guy that gets convicted of murder and then gets out and goes to his hometown when it gets proven that he didn't do it. We know how you were just saying how you felt when you got out. How did the community receive you when you got out?
So the community, they look at me, they keep calling me a goat. And I keep telling them I'm not a goat. But they like, listen, when you win, we won. We finally got one from Philly. Like, y'all been screwing us all this time, and he went in there and embarrassed y'all. So when we call you a goat, it's because you give us hope. And a lot of people just say, welcome me in with open arms.
Right. It's when I was reading and listening about you, that the thing that struck me most was when you think about our justice system, the way it's supposed to be built is that we would rather let people go that are guilty than put people in jail that are free. That's what the presumption of innocence is basically about. But for a lot of people, and you included, it works the other way around, right? Like it works the exact opposite way. And it seems though, instead of having people who might be guilty get out, we have people who are likely innocent in. So what is the fix? Like how do you're doing what you can, right? You're helping these people, and like, what is the way to fix this? What is the path?
I think it starts, it's different levels. It's first you gotta, I can't even answer that. Some people are trying things, but I don't think it's enough. Police accountability, I think, is a big thing. I don't even think we really, with technology the way it is, all the police are overpowered cleanup crew. They aren't really there when it happened. They come after it happened, clean it up, and lock the people up. Well, if that's the case, then what are we spending 170?
Yeah,
hundreds of $1 million on it for just to clean up? I just don't. I think it starts in the educational system, though. I think it starts in the educational system because if you have rights, if everybody have rights, is this the land of the free, the greatest country in the world? Why is it? And if you can answer it, why is it millions of Americans that can't answer it? When you ask them, you have privileges in this country that no other country has, and you ask them what? It's millions of Americans that can't state the privileges. And these are protections against you. These are guarantees against you that no one can, no government force can violate. But yet you ask someone, and they won't even be able to tell you. And I think that's a flaw in the educational system. Because when you look at the criminal justice system, if you don't understand your rights, I'm just dependent on a lawyer to protect my rights. Well, I don't even know what you protected if I don't know my rights. And I think that's where it starts. I think once you begin to teach it adequately in school before people become adults, then you'll have more people of understanding, more people interested in politics. Because right now they looking at them like, look at them stiflers up there. Them stiflers up there. Just get loose.
You're wearing a defund the police shirt.
No trust.
Are talking about the defund the police movement and reinvesting in the communities. What would you want if we, in a lot of cities around the country, I'm in LA, we made some some changes and removing money from the police budget, but not enough. What would you want to see the money reinvested into? What in your community?
I want to see the money reinvested into the educational system. I want to see the money put into parks and recreations, libraries. Let's find out. You're not going to bring these kids or teach people if you don't make it relatable to them. So let's put this money back in here and rebuild how we teach it. Because if I tell you something, all right, when I speak about law and they be like, oh, why you need a lawyer? And I'll be like, it's like me playing you one-on-one. Right? And I don't know the rules. I don't know the rules how to play ball. I don't know nothing. And I check the rock with you. I can't say if you cheated me. I can't say anything because I don't know the rules of basketball. You see what I'm saying? So if we reinvest into the community to teach them, listen, you're a citizen. Schools are a citizen here. Bang. See, I just broke that out in basketball terms. But let's find out what the kids' interest and break everything down into their terms. Then the comprehension level will shoot through the roof. Let's fix the highways and roads as well. I'm tired of blowing my tires out on potholes. I'm not that good. I can't.
You and me both.
Do past that fast. But first, let's do schools, parks and recreations, libraries. Let's improve those arenas first. Let's improve those departments because those departments open up doors of opportunity. When you talk about opportunity, you can't see the opportunity if you're not educated to know what it is. So let's go back and work on the development.
Oh, man, your story is incredible and should be a movie. I kept reading story after story. I was like, this dude was his own lawyer and won. Like it doesn't seem like it happens in real life. Like I can't believe it happened in real life. And the smartest decision you made since you got out was not watching this year's Sixers. I mean, Absolutely. Just a very smart decision. So the t-shirts you can get at DA_litigator on Instagram and Twitter. The links are up there, right? If people do. I appreciate your story. Yeah. I appreciate your time today and all you're doing to help people who are in situations like you.
Absolutely.
You're fighting.
Thank you.
Yep.
We're fighting. That's all. We still fighting.
Best of luck.
Thank you, man.
Thank you guys for having me on here.
Well, that was great. I cannot imagine the combination of desperation and confidence it must take to say, fuck it, I'll just be the lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and to hear that you were one guy away from getting off, like, you know, wasted, you know, more years of your life. It's sad, man. It's so sad. He seems like a happy guy. He seems like he's really appreciating what he's got, but you know, it shouldn't have been taken from him like that.
Well, and I appreciate that his attitude is like, you remark, here's a guy that came on and he's nothing but smiles and excited to tell a story and then to help other people. And that is I think the best lesson from what he went through is that he would have every right to be angry and bitter and say, fuck it. Like, I'm going to go make up for the time that I lost. But instead he's trying to help prevent people from losing the same time that he did. And I think that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I really do think, I just can't fucking believe it. And the way he is would play well in a movie. That's all I'm saying. Like,
a lot of singing in court.
Yeah. Like, it almost seems unreal. If you saw the movie, it would say, that's not the way it would be, singing like Sesame Street. We have a couple of other huge guests coming up this week. One Sixers related, one not Sixers related. So
gonna be a weird week.
Yeah, it's gonna be a weird week. Well, it's been a weird few months. So we will thank you to Mike, thank you to Hassan, and thank you for listening. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, you know, Lickface.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you. If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
but if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you! Time for plan B.